Okay, excellent. We're Tim X. We come from Cambridge. We do a piece of software that does lighting. We also travel around and talk about lighting. My name is Pedersen. I'm a lead artist, and this is Julius Davis, our CTO. He'll be joining us later for the actual session. I'm going to sort of run us through the talk very quickly and show some examples of software and sort of talk a bit about lighting in real life, in movies and in games, and we're going to try and find some sort of common elements and then see if there's any way to improve the lighting in game. Lighting is everywhere around us. It can be captured through various media. You turn up, you look around, and you go, wow, this looks good. Then you do a painting of it. You can do you can film it, or you can take a picture of it to sort of capture this beauty that you're seeing. The actual lighting conditions can be hard to control. We rely a lot more on actually just exposing correctly and sort of trying to try and capture the lighting. So here's a few examples of that. So again, the lighting is really visible in this picture because all of the walls are white, and you sort of see the sort of pools of light coming in through the arches. The next one is interesting as well because of the sort of sun happens to fall down on the wall at quite a sort of grazing angle, then the actual sort of detail in the wall is picked out, all the sort of tiny little surface details. That's just about, this chap was here, he took the picture, and that thing happened. So film lighting. Lighting is one of the main devices for controlling the mood in the film, and it's a really powerful way of controlling the emotion of what's going on. So we got an example, which is film noir. All film noir also uses lighting to define emotion. So we've been reading quite a lot in a book called Painting with Light by John Elton, which I thought was fascinating. We had quite a few takeaways from that. Less is more. It's something that he's talking about quite a lot. He's got a very minimalistic lighting setup, which means that he can sort of iterate really quickly and sort of move around the light sources when he's asked to and just respond to to the director's idea. So game lighting, one of the problems with sort of lighting or composing stuff for games is that it's the player that's controlling the camera. He will always look where he's not supposed to, sort of down on the ground, in the corner, etc. So it's hard to actually sort of place things where they look pretty on the final image that you see. The different elements of the lighting in games are challenging for the game engineers. I know that because I work with quite a lot of them. Also, in terms of games, technical restrictions has forced certain compromises, at least that's what we believe. We sort of tend to use kind of desaturated gray colors. Sometimes you don't really have that good a sense of depth because if something is in shadow, it tends to be very flat. Characters don't really look embedded. So it takes us to our first demo. It uses two light sources. There's the sun and there's the sky. If I move in here to the arches, you see these sort of pools of lights that we talked about before. And I've got complete control over the lighting setup. So what I can do is that if I decide that the sunlight is too bright, I can pick the sun, I can turn it down. I can turn it down even more. Turn it back up again. And you start to see that the actual sort of surface starts to sort of burn out and blooms. So what I can do is basically to compensate for that, but maintain the ambient light levels, because I can adjust the actual sort of bounces of light independently of the main light. Also, the scene only uses two light sources. It uses the sun and it uses the sky, so it's quite easy for me to sort of iterate and basically change the mood in the entire scene. So I can very quickly sort of just try out some ideas if I'm being asked to sort of, what would this look like if the sun was more like a sunset kind of lighting. Can turn off the sun altogether so you get like a nighttime. So that's basically an example of games lighting. This is just using games technology. It's not an actual game, I should say. So the next bit is basically about lighting characters and mood. So a powerful way of attuning mood is radiosity, which is basically just light bouncing about the environment. It's something that's not really been possible previously, but we're just starting to get to the point where it is actually possible to do this in real time. looking at or reading up on John Alton's book, Less is More. So if I use a minimalistic lighting setup that's easy to configure and iterate, I can basically use the indirect lighting to bind together foreground and background, or I can choose to use the direct lighting to separate foreground and background. It's all up to what sort of effect you're after in the end. This takes us to a next demo. So I move on the camera. So look at the girl from the front. Now there's two light sources in the room. There's the sort of skylight, which is a big area light outside of the windows. And then there's one light source, which is this one that sort of shines down on the floor, on the red carpets, and we get lights bounced around the room. And basically, at the moment, the character is quite well integrated with the background because she receives the same lighting as the background. She sort of got the sort of red-blue contrast going on. So if I change an element in the scene, then you'll notice that we get quite a dramatic change in the mood. Interestingly enough, what I'm actually changing here is not the actual light source. What I'm changing here is the colors of the carpet. So again, because we got radiosity, because we got a sort of global vision of what we actually want, then just changing one little element in the scene is actually a really powerful way of controlling the mood. So dynamic lighting. Films like Alien use a lot of dynamic lighting. So we had sort of this sort of chase scene where Ripley's being chased through the corridors, trying to escape from the Nostromo. Dark corridors, flashing light, etc. That was basically the sort of platonic way of doing dynamic lighting for quite a while, and games have been copying it for ages. So this is basically the same scene as before, but I've just gone in and I relit it. I've placed the light source outside of the windows, and I'm just flashing that a bit on and off. And it gives this impression of lighting. And we actually just use one light source to light up the entire room, apart from the lantern from the girl. And just animating this one light source enables these sort of dynamic effects. So now I just wanted to try and sort of tie together, these real life and film and games lighting, and then see if we can actually draw some conclusions from it. So in real life, we got little control over the lighting environment, but you tend to achieve some very believable results. In games, games are easier to control, but it's quite hard to actually achieve something that's believable. That's what we're trying to do in geomatics, obviously. In movies, actually achieving believability can take quite a while. The iteration time can be quite slow. You achieve these extreme levels of believability that really does connect with people emotionally. And the composition is a big element of that, is very carefully determined. So I've been trying to do this fancy triangle. So again, depending on where you want, say, your game to be, you might want your game to be more believable, so you might move it up towards believability, but that'll be on the cost of iteration time. It'll take you longer to actually achieve believability. Your iteration time goes up. In terms of composition, you could sort of move your game towards being a more composed game, but that means that you don't give your player control over the camera. That tends to frustrate your players. So what should we do then? Well, we believe that what we should do is to have a sort of composition that's somewhere in between randomly and completely predetermined. Things like, Fable 2, for example, does a really good job of that. Assassin's Creed does as well. To actually do more minimalistic lighting, to try and improve technology, and to focus the quality where it's needed. Thank you very much.